Hey, what's going on, Average Joes? I am back in my setup, my home. I got my normal studio going up, my new microphone, all is well. And today I want to tell you about why you should read The Rook. So, if you noticed recently, a lot of my videos have been in a hotel room and abroad, and I was gone for about a month back to the States. And now I am back to where we are living currently and in my office. And it feels so good to be back in my setup with my normal office and my camera, my microphone, everything it feels great. But I want to talk with you today about a book that not many people know about or have read. I have literally not seen one person talk about this book in BookTube, at least my limited experience with BookTube. And there's only one that I know of, Lauren from Paperback Empire, who's actually read it, and I only know that because I saw it on her shelf behind her, and the sequel. So, The Rook is a fantastic book, and that's why I want to talk about why you should read it today. I definitely like bringing light to lesser known fantasies, especially when it comes to reviews, why you should read, things like that, because so many people are going to cover the big names, the big books. There's some that I might cover in general too, but I really want to shine light on this. Now I know I also have a habit of mostly talking about Kindle Unlimited books. This one is not on Kindle Unlimited, unfortunately, but it is still fantastic. It's only $10 on Kindle. Looking at it right now, and the paperbacks are 12. So it's not too much, um, but it is a fantastic read. And now we're going to get into why you should read and what it is. So it is an urban fantasy. So think Dresden Files is urban fantasy, so it takes place in a city that we know. This one takes place in London, in a city that we know. There is also a secret society, and there are magical creatures, people with abilities and magic, and it is a very much a secret government organization in London. It's actually technically there's organizations all over the world, but this one takes place in London, and it is a single POV. And what really catches you about this is the mystery behind it. From the synopsis and from page one, you are going to be hooked. And because I typically don't read synopsis or any passages from books just because I don't. But this one, I feel I need to because it hooked me and it's hooked other people. So I'm going to just read that real quick. So synopsis: Miffy Thomas, so it is that's the main character, awakens in a London park surrounded by dead bodies. With her memory gone, she must trust the instructions left by her former in order to survive. She quickly learns that she is a Rook, a high level operative in a secret agency that protects the world from supernatural threats. But there is a mole inside the organization, and this person wants her dead. Battling to save herself, Miffy will encounter a person with four bodies, a woman who can enter her dreams, children transformed into deadly fighters, and terrifyingly vast conspiracy. Suspense and hilarious, The Rook is an outrageously imaginative thriller for readers who like their espionage with a dollop of purple slime. So that's another thing. So there is a big, big mystery to it. Hooks you from page one, and it also has some really, really good humor. So you stay for the mystery, or you pulled in for the mystery. You stay for the humor and the nature of the characters and just this world that is created with it. And the very beginning of the book starts off. So the synopsis mentions the letters that she writes herself, and the very first page is the first letter that she writes herself. She's just waking up in the rain, in around dead bodies, and the very first sentence is, "Dear you, the body you are wearing used to be mine." And then it's a letter about what's going on, why she wrote the letter, and then so in the majority part of the beginning of the book, you're flopping back and forth between letters that was written by herself, her former self, before she lost her memory, and then now her new self kind of coming into her own. And it's almost like two completely different people, two completely different personalities, because as she learns through the letters and other people that she works with, that she's a completely different person. She was a very, very introverted, um, socially awkward person, but the person that you're reading from is very much not that. And it is very funny and enjoyable to see her stumbling about because she's essentially posing as somebody else, that she's just learning who she is, no idea what's going on, but she's acting like she's the same person because the letters tell her you need to act like you're the same person, or what have you. So that whoever's after her and wants her dead doesn't know. So she is discovering things through the letters, through firsthand experiences, And I think that's also really good about this is because as the main character discovers it, you're discovering it. So it's a natural way to build upon the world, build upon the characters, and to learn about the characters. I mean, one example is her name is Miffany, and it's spelled really weird. And in the letter to herself, she tells her how to pronounce it so that you as a reader know how to say the name that you're reading in the book. And it's just very, very small thing like that that I really, really like. It might irk some people. I don't know if it counts as like breaking the fourth wall or info dumpy or anything like that, but I really liked it. And that's how you're introduced and built up to this world because every time there turns out to be dozens and dozens of letters that she wrote herself, her future self, with her memory gone. And every time she, like, there's some of them that are numbered in order, and then I think if eventually she gets to a point where there are letters with like people's names on it, so that when she meets that person, she opens the letter and it tells them all about this person that she just met, so that you're getting the background of it. And then it's funny to see how she acts and how people think she used to act and all of that. So while she's discovering herself and the world that she's in, she's also trying to uncover who this mole is and who's trying to take down the organization and who wants her dead. So she's going through her list of suspects and really trying to figure out, she's trying to figure out everything out basically. So she is a rook. Miffany is a rook. And what's also really cool about that is that the organization is structured kind of like a chessboard to where, it's ran by the king and queen. Then you have the bishops, the knights, and then the rooks. So there's two of each, and because chess piece, and then a lot of everybody else are like pawns and such. So she is a rook. So she is a high level person in this organization. So she has a lot of access, but she's trying to investigate the other people, the other high levels in the organization, because one of them is the mole. Because it's a urban fantasy, you know the world, London. All you're getting to know is this secret organization and then what it all entails. So the world building, it's not like it's going to be tremendous because it's urban fantasy, but the organization and the creatures and the people's abilities are very vast. Like some of the most minor abilities to some of the most ridiculous abilities. It's how I like to think of this, because of the people with the abilities and because of the secret organization, is X-Men meets Men in Black. So while Men in Black is that secret organization for aliens, this one is for the supernatural on Earth. And then you have all the people with the random abilities. So there are some monsters that you will know. There are vampires, or at least a Dracula and such, and a lot of those type of creatures. I think they mention a kraken and Loch Ness monster and things like that. So at times it can be info dumpy because I guess is the writing style, but it is definitely a page turner. You are going to keep hooked into the mystery. You will go from letter to her firsthand experience to letter, and then it just wants to keep you going. And if you don't like the whole writing letters to yourself or reading letters to tell a story, then one might not be for you. But I think it helps drive the mystery and I guess the narrative a little bit. It's different to get some of these different writing styles and different ways to tell a story. I think is really, really refreshing. The Rook is a standalone book. There is a sequel book, but it is, in my opinion, most people's opinion, inferior to the Rook. Still decent, still good, but this can be treated as a standalone, and it is actually my number one standalone from when I did a top standalone books a while back list. So it's a book that definitely shouldn't be taken too seriously. It is a very, very fun read. You're going for the mystery. It's quick, it's fun. There's a lot of humor in it. There's a lot of sass and wit. Some of it's a bit drier because it is a little bit British humor, but it is a very enjoyable read because of that. You will like the mystery and the humor of it as well. At least to me, I definitely had some laugh out loud funny moments, and that's what makes this a super good in between palette cleansing book, because you can just pick it up for whatever in between your other heavier fantasy reads, or if you're heavy series reads, whatever else you're reading, and just throw this one in. Even though it's like 500 pages, it goes really, really quick. You know how just to go to my beloved food metaphors. Everybody has these when you eat, you have these complicated dishes that you make. You go into eating, you can describe, you can go on and on about you ate this with this and you made it with this and this. And then there's just some of those where it's like, I just have burger and fries. Sometimes you're just in the mood for something simple like burgers and fries, and I consider the Rook kind of like a burgers and fries of books. It's Not going to be anything super spectacular, groundbreaking, but it's fun, it's great, it's enjoyable, and I think it's just something that you should fill in or throw in every once in a while to your reading. These palette cleansers can really be great for these big time in between big time series, and I think this one fits it perfectly. You really do, because you're learning everything with Miffany and learning about her past and then her present and how her personality is being shaped. You really begin to like her and root for her in the story, and that's something also that's really awesome in standalones. A lot of times with standalones, it is very plot heavy. You are driven by the plot, and since this is a mystery, a lot of times with mysteries, I've said before, is that it's very plot focused. It's the character's just kind of a passenger, just kind of a vessel for the plot, and that's that. And while the plot is great on this one, Miffany is as equally great in this book. So both of them are drive the story. So there is enough here for plot based people and character based people. And while it is only one book, you're not going to get the most fleshed out characters. If you're a stickler with your characters, you're still going to get a very enjoyable character to read from. Now, for those who might not be this for, is if you like your flowery, long, descriptive prose, this probably isn't for you. You probably aren't a fan of most standalones anyway. I mean, unless you're reading Guy Gavrier, there's really not that much out there. So I don't think this probably isn't for you. Urban fantasy can be somewhat of a niche anyway. So people tend to stray away from urban fantasy or know when urban fantasy is not for them. So that's that as well. But I still think it is really fun. There are some mixed reviews on Goodreads and such. There always are going to be, because this is a debut book. So I guess take that for what it is. There's probably going to be some rough points at some times. Dialogue might not be ideal for some people. The humor and the cheekiness might also not be the best for some people if you don't like that much humor in your books. Depends on your style, but I think it is very much worth the read. It's also one that I think after you read the first couple of chapters, 10% or 10-15%, if you don't like that part of it, then I don't think you're going to like the rest of it. So it's not one of these stories where it's like, well, the first 50% is rough and then it gets better. It's not one of those. If you don't like the first 10-15% of the book, which isn't that much, 50 pages, then you're probably not going to like the rest of it, because it's going to be a lot similar. The letters are going to continue for a decent bit of it. Miffany is going to evolve some, but the humor is still going to be the same. The mystery is going to grow, but the mystery from the beginning. So it's definitely one that you can try out in the beginning. At first, you just give it a try, and if it's not for you, then feel free to DNF. No shame in that. Not everybody's tastes are going to be the same. Okay, so to finally wrap up, I got to give my rating system on this. I need to start using it more. So my rating system on the Rook would be enjoyment. I'm going to give an 8. Pacing, I'm going to give a 9, because it does really hook you in and it is a page turner. And recommendation, I'm going to also give an 8. Really in between 8 or 9 on that one. I do highly recommend it. 9. We're giving it a 9. So really high score. Obviously, it's my number one standalone book in fantasy, I believe, even though it's urban fantasy. But that is my rating system on it, and I hope you check it out. That is why you should read The Rook. And please let me know if you have read The Rook, if you've heard of The Rook. I have talked about this in the past, but like I said, very few people have even heard of it or read it. So I'm very interested to see what other people are thinking. If you have read this, or if it's been on your radar. As I said, there is a sequel book called Stiletto, and that Stiletto takes place with 2 different POVs, and Miffany still is in it and around the area, but it's new POVs. And I think I just saw next year, book 3, he's coming out with a 3rd book in that world, in that series. They are somewhat connected, but you can still treat the Rook as a standalone completely fine, and it's totally fine. So let me know what you think, and we can chat more in the comments.